So obviously it's Black History Month, in case you guys haven't heard. So the Wisconsin state legislator, led by the Black caucus in that particular one, they're putting forward a bill, or at least a resolution, to show at least, I guess, some reverence to some of the Black folks that have hailed from Wisconsin.
Makes sense.
They ran into a couple of hurdles. The list some of the people on the list included Condoleezza Rice. Oh, did you know she was from Wisconsin? Reggie Jackson, former baseball player, and Colin Kaepernick, who hails from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Can you see where the problem may have come into play? Republicans jumped in and said, I object, we can't have this happen. Started with Assembly Majority Leader Jim Steinich. He was quoted as saying, the Republicans wouldn't support the resolution that included Colin Kaepernick for, quote, obvious reasons. So he was against it completely. Also, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos, she jumped in and she gave a little more clarity to it, because she said they wanted a resolution that was free of controversial figures, that the entire body could support. She was quoted as saying, I think it's important to recognize the contributions of literally thousands and thousands of African Americans to our state's history, but also trying to find people who, again, bring us together. Not look at people who draw some sort of vitriol from either side. That was Robin Vos. So they jumped on board, they're talking about what's going on. One of the main authors of the bill, the Democrat, Representative David Crowley, this is one of the members of the Black caucus, he said it's a textbook example of white privilege and a slap in the face that basically put forward some of their leaders or people that they wanted to honor. And some of the white figures from the other side of the aisle said, you know what, no, we don't like those guys, because the obvious reasons being, is it the kneeling? I think that might be some of it. So eventually, after it all went down, they had to take Colin Kaepernick's name off the list in order to get this passed.
They should have never taken it off. All right, so let's break this down. So first of all, you don't want any controversial figures on the list. Condoleezza Rice is on the list. A huge percentage of the country believe that she aided and abetted war crimes. Oh, but the other guy took a knee. Oh, I'm sorry. I get it. Real controversial things. Why did he take a knee? To protest systematic abuse by the police. So he was fighting for justice. So one guy's fighting for justice and did it in a peaceful way and used his First Amendment rights. Unacceptable, vitriolic. The other person authorized wars that got up to millions of people killed. Millions of people. And the warrantless wiretapping and the torture and all those things. But that is not controversial according to the Republicans. So that's one part of it. Second of all, that standard is total horse crap. So you know who was considered vitriolic at the time? Martin Luther King, and John Lewis, and all the civil rights activists. That's why they got batons upside their head. That's why they got a cavalry charge in Selma, Alabama. That's why the Klan burned crosses and lynched people. You think that Martin Luther King and the civil rights activists walked into the South and they were like, oh, I'm so glad you brought us together. No, they hated him. And they found them, what do they say? Northern agitators, divisive, all the same things. So they were much more hated back then. And they eventually brought the country together through their courage and their work, which is exactly what Colin Kaepernick is doing.
Right, but the vitriol that I see is the people who look at a bill that's just like, hey, can we honor these people who are important? And the vitriol is brought forth by the people who are like, no, I see this as an opportunity for me to get some kind of weird political points with my base by stopping it. Like, this is the kind of thing that, like, you just write it, what, we get saying people are good? All right, do it, move it right through the legislative body. But these people are obviously seeing that they have the opportunity to gain some kind of name recognition by stopping it. And I totally agree, there is no reason to take the name out of the resolution whatsoever. It just signals that you're scared about it. And it's so ironic that the other people on the list who have, the people that you mentioned, were the ones who did not back down in the face of all that, and got to a point that you point out now where they are no longer these wildly controversial figures because they stuck with it.
So this Black athlete who's done things that you don't like because you're a person who maybe doesn't associate with his stance, or what has happened to other folks that don't look anything like you, or haven't gone through the things that police put many people through, you object to it because that didn't fit your narrative. This isn't your history month. This is Black Americans History Month. So, I mean, again, I'm not sure. You talked about the political points that can be scored. I'm still not sure how you can win on this. What are you gonna, so if you're part of the legislative body that lets this pass, this honorable mention by the way, that passed. You're gonna run next time and there's gonna be campaign ads against you? Are you going to get primaried? Where they say, hey, this Republican signed a resolution that said Colin Kaepernick's a decent guy. Because on top of it, graphic number 25, also the author of the bill, Crowley, also said that Kaepernick was in part included because he donated $25,000 to the Milwaukee nonprofit Urban Underground. And that's a group that works with teens. We like to talk about how black folks need to give back to the community. How dare you leave what's going on in Chicago while you're over here talking about what's going on in other parts of the country? Fix Chicago first. Hey, Colin Kaepernick is giving money to many organizations, not just in Milwaukee, to help with kids who need, first off, know their rights is the first thing he's talking about, and also make a better lives for themselves.
Yeah, and I like to think Progress actually pointed out. And by the way, the kneeling is not against the military. It was actually in deference to the military. Kaepernick consulted with military members and said, what's the most respectful way to do a protest during the national anthem? And they said to take a knee. So all that is nonsense too. So how would I have reacted? So I love what JR said, first of all. I'm like, listen, when it gets to your history month, then we'll have another conversation, okay? But right now, we're writing the bill, okay? And you, yay or nay, that's all we need from you, okay? And then we'll move on. And I'm not saying you can't vote. I mean, of course you could vote. Maybe you put a name on there you really, really don't like, right? Somebody who's a terrible person, okay? Somebody who might actually, like from time to time, take the wrong kind of stance, literally, right? They might be sitting or standing when you didn't want them to. I mean, that kind of terrible person, fine. So you get to vote nay. But you don't get to tell me who goes into my celebration of Black History Month. Okay, but then you know me, I'm gonna take it further. But like, here's the situation. Thank you for pointing out that some of these folks might not deserve the honor. We're keeping Kaepernick in, we're taking Condoleezza Rice out, and now we're gonna vote again, okay? And so, slipped my mind that she might be a war criminal. And so, slipped my mind that she argued for the Iraq war, saying that the next sign could be a mushroom cloud, made up that Saddam has nuclear weapons, totally made it up, total fiction. About 1 million citizens, civilians died in Iraq. Thank you for pointing that out. She's out. Kaepernick's in. In fact, I'm gonna mention him twice. I'm gonna mention him in the beginning and at the end. Okay, so now let's vote. You wanna vote? No, that's your call, brother. I'll see you in the campaign. All right, you wanna run ads against me saying, this guy voted to celebrate Colin Kaepernick, have at it, Hoss, okay? And I'll run an ad saying, you voted against Black History Month, and that's okay. That's your call. Maybe that'll help you with your voters.
It's crazy, Jake. You actually hit on 2 points that I wasn't necessarily going to mention because there was some Democratic objection, and then one of the Republicans was saying this wasn't in there, but they were saying that the blocking of them trying to take the name out was just a ploy to stop the vote on the middle class tax cut plan, which was again part of a bigger resolution. So this is a part of a bigger vote, and they say you're just trying to take away from the middle class tax cut we're trying to push. So of course, changing and misleading the whole thing again, saying this isn't about Colin Kaepernick anymore. This is about the middle class tax cut that we're trying to also include in this bill, and now these Black caucus members are putting it aside. Last year in 2018, guess who was on the list? Because they had to pass 2 separate resolutions because Representative Scott Allen, a Republican, he added Milwaukee Sheriff David Clark to the list. Oh. And of course, many members of the caucus said, we don't want that guy on. So there was another clash, so they had to pass 2 separate ones.
So let me get this right. White Republicans are telling Black Democrats who to have on their list to celebrate for Black History Month. Now, we like the guy who let somebody die of thirst in his jails. Think about that. Somebody in America died of thirst. That's because Sheriff David Clark was running that jail and would not let anybody, he supervised it, and they would not let that guy have a drink of water for days and days and days until he died, okay? In another case, a woman needed a doctor while delivering. They wouldn't bring a doctor, and then the baby died. I thought you guys were pro-life. That's the guy they want to celebrate, but the guy who's saying, hey, you should stop shooting innocent African Americans who are unarmed. They're like, boo, no, you're not allowed to celebrate him in Black History Month. Oh, duly noted, thank you.
Some of my best friends ran prisons where people died. That's what it is. It's like, these guys on my side, I like him. That's what's so frustrating. And it all boils down to like feeling somewhat uncomfortable during a part of an NFL football game that you used to not watch or pay attention to. That's what's so frustrating. That's what I just never came to understand. And I've had hours-long arguments with people who say that it is wildly offensive to kneel during the national anthem, and I still cannot wrap my mind around why. And I think that at this point, as it's been presented in these stories, it's gotten so far from that original point that it's just folks who reflexively say, what's something I can say to make people like me, to get me retweeted, to get me in a headline, and it's just that. Colin Kaepernick, bad. No, even though in many ways, like the jury has gone out and come back and said it's fine, like the much advocated for marketplace of ideas that, in the case of the Nike ads is an actual marketplace. They decided that they were with Colin on it. They went with their capitalist instincts, with overlap with the fundamental like thrust of society in the direction that it's going, and they decided Colin was right and you guys were wrong.
Yeah, hey, I'm objecting to Reggie Jackson, man. I'm a total Boston fan.
Oh yeah, and after what he did in the Naked Gun,
yeah,
programmed to shoot the Queen, I think.
I just explained why he's called Mr. October to my kids randomly, like within the last week, and they're like, "Oh, that is so cool." Okay, my last points here are both harsh and light. So. On the harsh side, if you notice, the two black Republicans the two African Americans that Republicans wanted to celebrate, although they both do happen to be Republicans, are David Clark and Condoleezza Rice, who have both led to the deaths of other brown people. So that's cool, let's celebrate that. Kaepernick wants to protect the lives of other brown people. No go, okay? And finally, I like how JR bothered to dress ahead and think ahead, and has a Packers hat while doing a Wisconsin story.
Good for you.
Hey, it all has to come together.
Was that on purpose?
Not at all.
How's that for an unbelievable coincidence?
The story was gonna happen today.
Okay. You didn't know the Republicans were gonna block Black History Month in Wisconsin today?
I should have figured, you're right.
Yeah, well, any given day. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.